Switch. Thank you guys for joining us today. Hope you guys had an awesome week. Here's Nigel with this week's message.
Switch Youth, good evening and welcome to yet again another awesome Friday evening. I'm going to dive straight into it, and my message this week is called Trust the Process. I want us to look at the life of a man named Joseph. Now, Joseph, at a young age, we know that God had given him a dream, and he had shared this dream with his brothers, who, out of jealousy, out of anger, because at the end of Joseph sharing this dream with him, he said that his brothers would bow before him. Eventually, his brothers take him, they throw him into a pit and then sell him into slavery. From there, we know that Potiphar's wife lies against Joseph, and Joseph is then thrown into a prison. From there, Joseph meets and encounters two people who he begins to share and help in their time there, who was later released from prison. And Pharaoh then begins to have dreams, and one of the prisoners that was in prison with Joseph remembers what Joseph had done for him, and he tells Pharaoh about this. Pharaoh begins to release him, and Joseph begins to interpret the Pharaoh's dream. Joseph later on becomes second in charge over the whole of Egypt. And then from there, his brothers, the Israelites, end up coming into Egypt and fulfilling what the dream that God had given Joseph at a young age, where his brothers then bow before him. And he now begins to help his brothers after forgiving and releasing them. Understand this, trust the process, because God will give you a dream, He will give you a vision, He will give you a word. But what happens from the time the word is given until the fulfillment of a word, there's a process in between, where God is building your character, where God is teaching you things, because you cannot obtain the promise and you cannot obtain what God has in store for you without having the character to back it up. Because if God just gives you the promise, or He gives you something, you might not have the character to back it up, and you might destroy what God is trying to do. So God begins to take Joseph on a journey. And you see this is that the pit or the prison was not a place of isolation, was not a place of exile, but it was a place of preparation. Because when Joseph is in the prison, he uses that time and uses that opportunity to share and sharpen his skills and the gifts that God had given him. What are you doing now in the time from which God has given you a word and spoken to you until the fulfillment of it? Because in this time is where we begin to prepare ourselves, where we begin to further bettering the skills and the talents that God has given us, the gifts that God has given us. Just because it seems that you're in an impossible situation doesn't mean that God cannot still work even in that time. We also see the story with David as well, who had to trust God with the process, because David was anointed as to be king over Israel, and he was a shepherd boy. But it took years before David was actually eventually made king over Israel. So what are you doing from now until the fulfillment of God's promise for you? What are you doing in this time? Are you trusting God? Are you questioning God? Or are you doubting God even in this time? Because sometimes it's important to speak life into a dead situation. Habakkuk chapter 2 verses 2 to 4 says that, write down the vision and make it plain, though it may tarry, do not grow weary in doing good, for in due season it shall come to pass, for the just shall live by faith. So are you living by faith, trusting and believing that what God has spoken shall come to pass? Or are you sitting and doubting and saying, God, this is not happening? Speak life into a dead situation and trust God with the process, because what He has in store for you is far better than what you could have for yourself. I love you guys, miss you guys, and we can't wait to see you guys again. Connect with us, stay tuned with us, stay plugged in, and we love you here at Switch. Have a blessed Friday.
Hope you guys enjoyed that video on trusting the process. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. As well as this Sunday, we'll be having the live stream service on YouTube and Facebook, as well as the drive-through. Catch you same time next week, same place. Good night and God bless.